Imagine for a second, getting fired at 15 years old just because your guitar is deemed too cheap.
Oh, that is rough.
Right. And you are just, you're too heartbroken to even tell your mom because she worked all these extra shifts just to buy it for you in the first place.
Yeah, you definitely can't tell her that.
Exactly. So instead of quitting, you lock yourself in your bedroom and you literally physically manipulate the speed of a vinyl record player just so you can figure out how to play by ear.
It's just wild.
It is. And that is the gritty, honestly completely unglamorous origin story of a guy who now, well, in his 70s, routinely plays 3-hour stadium shows. He's captured the American psyche for half a century.
Yeah, and I think, it completely shatters this illusion we have of the flawless genius blueprint.
Oh, totally.
When we look at true creative survival, it isn't this straight upward line. It is covered in spilled coffee, crossed out notes, and just absolute chaos.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking for you today. Welcome to the deep dive. We have got a massive stack of material to go through featuring broadcast interviews spanning 40 years.
It's a lot of tape.
It really is. We are pulling from a dusty 1984 BBC archive, some modern late-night sit-downs with Colbert and Kimmel, and this massive 2-hour Howard Stern conversation, all centering on Bruce Springsteen.
Right, but we aren't just reciting a biography here.
No, not at all. We are setting out on a mission today. We're doing a forensic analysis of his psychological resilience, the actual grueling mechanics of his songwriting, and, the dynamics of lifelong collaboration that define his entire career.
And to really understand that, you have to start by completely tearing down the mythology of fame.
Right, because the whole rock star myth is, well, it's a lot like a shiny vintage muscle car. The paint job looks flawless, the engine roars, it seems majestic.
But underneath?
Oh, if you actually look under the hood, it's held together with duct tape, sheer panic, and a lot of elbow grease.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how intentionally he maintains that duct-taped reality underneath. Like, it acts as this crucial psychological defense mechanism.
How so?
Well, when you are standing in front of 20,000 screaming people, the parasocial energy, the way all those people project their hopes and dreams onto you, it can create this completely isolating bubble.
Because they don't see you as a real person anymore.
Exactly. It detaches you from humanity.
I was reading about his post-show routine during that massive 1984 tour, and it completely shattered this illusion for me.
What was he doing?
Well, you assume the biggest star on the planet is, throwing wild hotel parties after a huge stadium gig, right?
Oh, for sure. Trashing hotel rooms, all of that.
Yeah, but instead, he goes back to a quiet house, eats dinner totally alone at 2:30 in the morning, wanders the completely empty city streets by himself, and then goes to sleep at 6 a.m.
Wow. This is like this inverted, completely solitary existence.
Yeah, sounds lonely.
It does. But that contrast between the roaring adulation of a stadium and the sheer silence of a 3 a.m. street walk, that's how he attempts to decompress his nervous system.
And the funny thing is, it hasn't really changed. Decades later, Colbert asked him about his favorite sandwich on late-night TV.
Let me guess, he expected some private chef culinary masterpiece.
Exactly, but he just said it's a 3 a.m. peanut butter and jelly with a big glass of milk.
That's so normal.
Right, and in that same vein, he was asked about his scariest animal. You just don't hear about rock gods dealing with necrotic insect bites. But his biggest fear is the brown recluse spider.
Wait, really? Why a spider?
Because he was actually bitten on his lower body multiple times while just hanging around at home.
Oh, man, that is terrible. But you see, it grounds him. The mundane is the absolute antidote to the myth.
Yeah, the spider doesn't care if you're famous.
Exactly. And sometimes he actively seeks out humiliation just to puncture that ego. There's this amazing story from the sources about him being in a really small bar in London.
Oh, I love this one. The karaoke incident.
Yes. Tell them about it.
So he decides to get up on this tiny stage in a London pub and sing the Temptation song, Ain't Too Proud to Beg.
Which you'd think would cause a riot.
Right. You'd think the crowd would lose their minds realizing who was singing, but nobody recognized him at all.
That is hilarious.
They entirely dismissed him as just another terrible, middle-aged karaoke singer. He actually admitted he never did it again, but he clearly needed to see what happened when the halo of fame was completely removed.
And it instantly strips away the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that lack of ego is just so essential to how he views his own persona. Like, in a recent interview, he brought up Jeremy Allen White.
Oh, yeah, the actor who's portraying him in the upcoming film Deliver Me from Nowhere.
Right. And he admitted feeling this genuine guilt sitting on the set, just watching Jeremy sweat and strain to sing these songs.
Well, because Jeremy wasn't just doing some superficial impersonation. The artist noted that the actor captured his psychological essence from the inside out.
Yeah, he embodied that exact tension we're talking about, the grinding reality underneath the glamorous myth.
But that grinding reality wasn't some act he put on just for fame. It was forged years earlier, back when absolutely no one believed in him.
Back in the bedroom with a cheap guitar.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because the scrap iron education of this frontman is just wild. We mentioned he got fired at 15 from his first band over a cheap guitar that wouldn't stay in tune.
Right.
So he retreats to his bedroom. But how does he actually learn to play? I mean, there's no teacher, there's no YouTube back then.
It's all physical media.
Exactly. He takes these 45 RPM vinyl records of the Rolling Stones, and he physically slows the turntable down to 33 speed.
And from an acoustic standpoint, I mean, that is an incredibly tedious but brilliant process.
Explain that for a second. Why slow it down?
Well, when you drop the speed from 45 to 33 and a third, you are literally stretching the sound wave. So the pitch drops significantly, creating this distorted, really muddy growl.
That sounds awful to listen to.
It is. But crucially, it slows the tempo down enough that a teenager could track the individual notes of Keith Richards' guitar solo on a song like It's All Over Now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tracking it one by agonizing one. It basically trains the ear to pick apart complex arrangements mechanically.
Just the sheer tenacity required to teach yourself music by physically manipulating the physics of a record player. I mean, that's dedication.
It really is.
But, surviving in your bedroom is one thing. The trial by fire on an actual stage is another beast entirely. I couldn't believe this story about a gig in 1973.
But the Chuck Berry one.
Yeah. His early, completely unknown band was booked to back up Chuck Berry.
And that is where the education goes, from the bedroom to the absolute deep end of the pool.
No kidding.
Because Chuck Berry was notorious for traveling alone, without a backing band, mostly just to save money.
So what happens?
He arrives like 5 minutes before the show, demands his cash up front, and absolutely refuses to share a set list.
Wait, he won't even tell them what songs they're playing?
Nope. He won't even tell them the keys the songs are in. He just walks out on stage, stomps his foot to count off the beat, and yells back at them, "Play for that money, boy."
Which is crazy because they weren't even making any money. They were playing for free just to back up their hero.
Exactly.
How do you even do that? Just guessing the key live in front of a massive audience while a legend is actively yelling at you.
Well, you learn to watch hands really closely, you listen for the root note, and you just fall in line instantly.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, these brutal early experiences are the crucible. It completely strips away any preciousness about your art.
And if that wasn't humbling enough, around that same time, they were actually booked to open for the comedy duo Cheech and Chong.
Oh, that's a tough crowd for a rock band.
Right. The crowd wanted jokes, they didn't want a rock band, and they were actively pulled off the stage after just 5 songs.
Yeah, and when you are forced to figure out a Chuck Berry song live, or you're literally being yanked off stage at a comedy show, you learn how to read a room very quickly.
You have to.
You learn how to adapt your energy to hostile environments. And that exact survival skill became the absolute foundation of his legendary, spontaneous 3-hour live shows later in life.
But adapting live on stage, that's a purely external skill. The real survival test for him, and honestly where most of his anxiety actually lives, is staring at a blank piece of paper.
The songwriting process.
Right, the internal, often torturous process of writing the songs. He actually refers to it as soul mining.
Which is such a great phrase because you're basically chipping away in the dark, hoping to strike a vein of ore with absolutely no guarantee that anything is actually down there.
He literally describes songwriting as pure torture. He admits that 90% of the time, he is just failing.
That's a huge failure rate.
Right. He's producing mediocre or just outright bad material. He will go 2 entire years without a single musical idea. Nothing.
Wow, 2 years.
And then suddenly, he'll write an entire classic album in 3 weeks.
It's all or nothing.
But I don't get it, though. He says it's pure torture, and he goes 2 years with total writer's block. But then, he wrote his biggest streaming hit, I'm on Fire, in exactly 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
That feels super contradictory. How does that even work?
Well, it sounds contradictory until you look at the psychology of the flow state and what we call the subconscious incubation period.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. When he is in that 2-year dry spell, His brain isn't actually doing nothing. It's doing some heavy lifting in the background. Psychologists call this the default mode network.
So his brain is working even when he feels stuck.
Exactly. While his conscious mind is super frustrated, his subconscious is constantly processing experiences, emotions, societal observations. It is building the architecture without him even realizing it.
Oh, so it's banking all those ideas.
Right, so when the moment of inspiration finally strikes, the song arrives almost fully formed. The years of failure and frustration are exactly what pay for those 2-minute miracles.
You literally cannot force the magic.
No, you really can't.
And you often can't predict where the magic belongs either. Like, he wrote Hungry Heart in 20 minutes.
Another quick one.
Yeah, and he fully intended to give it away to the Ramones.
Wait, the Ramones?
Yes. He ran into them, said he'd write them a song, went home, and just did it. But his manager, John Landau, heard it and essentially ordered him to keep it for himself.
That was a smart manager.
Very smart. That single decision gave him his first massive pop hit, and it famously changed the demographic of his audience.
Oh, so?
Suddenly, women were coming to his shows in droves, whereas before it was a heavily male, much rougher crowd.
That is fascinating. But, even with all that mastery, the vulnerability of the work never really goes away.
You'd think after writing these massive anthems, they are permanently etched in his brain. But he tells this terrifying story of standing on stage at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit.
Oh, the story gives me secondhand anxiety.
Right. 20,000 people. It's the first song of the night. He counts it off 1, 2, 3, 4, and he completely blanks on the lyrics to Born to Run.
His most famous song?
Yes. He said he couldn't remember a single word to any song he had ever written.
It's a total stress-induced mental block. When cognitive load exceeds your capacity, the brain simply misfires, and it locks away deeply ingrained memory.
He looked at his guitarist, Steve Van Zandt, whose jaw was just on the floor.
I bet.
He was literally about to stop the show and announce he was having a nervous breakdown.
Oh, man.
But then the crowd just naturally started singing the opening lines. They literally handed the song back to him.
It's an incredible moment of symbiosis.
Yeah.
But it really asks the question, right? What is he actually writing about that makes a crowd of 20,000 internalize those lyrics so deeply that they can sing it back to him?
That's a great point.
He isn't just writing catchy pop hooks. He's building entire cinematic worlds.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because back in 1984, at the dawn of MTV, the music industry was demanding music videos for everything.
Which was the new standard.
Exactly. And he heavily resisted. He felt that slapping a video onto his music was like painting a mustache on his songs.
That's a very vivid way to put it.
Right.
But he was highly protective of visual ambiguity. He intentionally writes with immense cinematic detail. A screen door slamming, a dress swaying in the wind.
Yeah, you can picture it immediately.
Right, he does that. So the listener constructs the visuals in their own mind using fragments of their own memories. If MTV dictates the visual narrative, it destroys the listener's ability to project their own life onto the song.
It's an incredible tension, retaining total control of his art by literally stepping back and inviting you, the listener, to finish the picture.
Exactly.
And he does this by stepping into other people's shoes. Take the album The Ghost of Tom Joad.
Yeah, that's a departure.
It is. He didn't write that from personal experience. He read a book called Journey to Nowhere about the post-industrial working class, and he deliberately chose to write from that perspective.
And he executes that empathy musically, too, not just lyrically. He heavily utilizes minor keys in that work.
Why minor keys specifically?
Well, scientifically and culturally. The frequency ratios in a minor third chord create acoustic dissonance. It instantly evokes a sense of melancholy and unresolved tension in the human ear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he is literally generating compassion by forcing the listener to experience that hardship musically.
It's total empathic storytelling. But, he also balances that heavy empathetic weight with absolute fictional chaos.
Oh, definitely.
Like the song Darlington County.
Yeah.
It is entirely made up. He said it's purely an act of the writer's imagination. But it was heavily inspired by the very real, unhinged chaos of his late bandmate, Danny Federici.
Federici was the complete embodiment of early rock and roll mania.
To put it mildly, he was the kind of guy who would unscrew the buttons in the hotel elevator to use as parts for his organ.
You can't make that up.
Or he'd leave marijuana plants in a car that ended up getting towed. And once in Middletown, New Jersey, they played past curfew, and the town sent their brand new SWAT team to shut it down.
A SWAT team.
Yes.
Yes.
And Danny Federici threw an amplifier at the police and just disappeared into the crowd.
That is insane.
Right. That kind of manic, unpredictable energy feeds directly into the fictional worlds he writes.
But, beneath the wild band stories, there is a profound emotional core, often rooted in deeply personal family dynamics.
Yeah, for sure.
Because writing about fictional chaos is one thing, but writing about true vulnerability requires a completely different kind of bravery.
And that's really evident in the song The Wish. Because in rock and roll, writing a song about your mom isn't exactly the standard move.
No, usually it's about cars or girls.
Right. But he wrote this for his mother, who suffered from Alzheimer's for 10 years. There's this beautiful, just heartbreaking anecdote of him visiting her, putting on 40s big band music, and just dancing with her on the porch.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He openly states that her love and her attention was the force that broke the chain of toxicity handed down by his father's difficult behavior.
And writing about that fictional immigrant in Tom Joad, or writing about his own mother, it's an act of deep psychological mirroring.
What do you mean by that?
He is taking the pain, the joy, or the chaos of the other and making it universal so that you, the listener, feel seen.
But a cinematic songwriter cannot execute a vision of that scale alone. If they're playing 3 hours a night with that kind of intensity, how do you even onboard someone new into that ecosystem?
Honestly, it's brutal.
Yeah.
Just look at when Jake Clemens auditioned to take over the saxophone duties for his late uncle, the legendary Clarence Clemens.
Oh, yeah.
Jake actually got lost on the way to the audition. He showed up late, and he didn't know the songs perfectly.
Did he get a pass because of his uncle?
Not at all. Instead of giving him a pass, he was told to go home and actually learn them. So Jake practiced 9 hours a day until his lips physically bled, just to honor his uncle and earn his spot in that band.
His lips bled. That is an absolutely grueling standard of excellence.
It really is.
And just look at the drummer, Max Weinberg. The guy is in his 70s, and he plays for 3 solid hours, pedal to the metal. He literally has to soak his hands in a bucket of ice after every single show just to cope with the physical trauma.
It's basically a marathon every night.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, musicians flock to this standard. When the legendary guitarist Nils Lofgren joined in the 80s, he didn't see it as a demotion from his solo career. He actually called it a gift from heaven because he didn't have to carry the burden of being the boss.
And the band isn't just playing memorized sheet music up there either. They're communicating non-verbally the entire night.
I was watching interviews with the band members about this. They said they have to watch him constantly. They're reading physical cues, a shift in his shoulder, the angle of his back, the way his leg moves.
Like an intense game of follow the leader.
Exactly. Because, going back to that Chuck Berry education, he might just throw a curveball at them and change the arrangement of a song in real time. A dropped shoulder might mean bring the volume down. A foot tap might dictate a sudden tempo change.
Which is incredible. But this raises an important question, right? History shows us that almost all rock bands eventually implode. Egos clash, resentments build, people walk away.
Yeah, it's pretty much inevitable for most bands.
So how does this specific group of people stay together and function at the highest possible level for over half a century?
Well, the interviews highlight one critical grounding force. His wife and bandmate, Patti Scialfa.
She plays a huge role.
She completely checks his narcissism at the door. He actually has a rule. He might be the boss for 3 hours on stage, but the minute he steps off, he surrenders the title.
Leave it at work.
Right. Inside their home, there are no music industry photos. The kids didn't even know what he did for a living until they were older. He just had to be dad.
That's so healthy.
And there's even this great story where she challenged him to write a song bragging about himself instead of his usual characters. So he picked up a guitar right there in bed and wrote Red-Headed Woman for her.
And that dynamic is the absolute essence of servant leadership. He demands grueling, absolute perfection on the stage, but he willingly surrenders his ego in his personal life.
It keeps things balanced.
It does. It prevents the toxic power imbalances that destroy most bands. He basically created a culture of shared sacrifice rather than mere employment.
It's an amazing ecosystem. But, even the strongest ecosystems face the inevitable realities of time. After 50 years, the conversation naturally shifts to mortality.
It's unavoidable. And he recently had a tragic realization. He's now the last surviving member of his very first band, the Castiles.
Wow, the last one left?
Yeah.
That realization actually led to the song, I'll See You in My Dreams. It's this beautiful acoustic affirmation that death is not the absolute end. the spirits of the people we lose live on in the people they impacted?
It's very poignant.
It is. And he actually extends that philosophy to physical objects, too. He believes that inanimate objects literally absorb the souls of their owners.
From an acoustic standpoint, it's actually quite poetic. As a wooden instrument ages and is played over time, the constant vibration alters the cellular structure of the wood.
Wait, it physically changes the wood.
Yeah, it quite literally resonates differently based on its history of being played.
That makes so much sense. And he prefers old, battered instruments for that very reason. He actually describes his famous Fender Telecaster as a log that a tank could run over.
Not exactly a delicate instrument.
No. And he specifically seeks out vintage acoustic guitars. There's this incredible story where he was leaving a play in New York City, and a fan on the street just handed him an acoustic guitar.
Just gave it to him.
Yes, the fan refused to have it signed, just said, "This is for you," and walked away. He took it home, found it had this beautiful aged sound, and ended up writing almost the entire Letter to You album on that exact guitar.
He is literally channeling the absorbed stories of a stranger's instrument. That's amazing.
It really is.
Now, looking at the broader scope of his legacy, he also speaks extensively about the state of the country. And to be clear, as we explore this, we aren't taking a side or endorsing a political view here. We are simply reporting his stated legacy goals and worldview as he laid them out in the sources.
Absolutely. He views his 50-year career as being a musical ambassador. When he plays songs like Land of Hope and Dreams or Long Walk Home, he expresses a deep advocacy for the Constitution, the rule of law, and the peaceful transfer of power.
Right.
He explicitly states his hope for an America that is free of fear and government censorship. That is the civic legacy he hopes his catalog leaves behind.
It's a desire for permanence, really.
Yeah.
A way to ensure that the ideals he sang about outlive the physical performance, much like the vintage guitars holding the souls of their players.
So what does this all mean? When you look at the entire arc, from the 15-year-old kid fired because his guitar was cheap, to the 70-something icon holding a piece of wood given to him by a stranger on the street, believing it holds ghosts.
I think it means his entire life is an exercise in capturing transient human emotion, the joy, the grief, the mundane reality of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and making it permanent through music.
It is a truly remarkable journey. And as we wrap up this deep dive, the takeaway for you listening right now is that true creative mastery is almost never about constant perfection.
That perfect blueprint just doesn't exist.
It doesn't. Mastery is about surviving the 90% failure rate. It's about physically slowing the record player down until you figure it out. It's about leaning on a community that keeps you grounded, whether that's a band reading your physical cues or just a partner who tells you to leave the ego at the door.
And above all, it's having the empathy to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Exactly.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on his belief that vintage objects absorb our souls and our stories. Look around your own life right now. What is the everyday object that is quietly absorbing your story? And if someone picked it up 50 years from now, what song would it sing?
Remember, that vintage muscle car might look flawless on the surface, but it's the duct tape and elbow grease underneath that keeps it running. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and keep exploring.